Hello. In this math video, I will do a GED math video regarding solving inequalities and graphing them. Okay, so before we start the three problems, I'm going to get out your notebook because I'm gonna write some notes. Okay, so when you're graphing inequalities, there are some things you need to know. So the symbol less than or greater than, notice it doesn't have a straight horizontal line, is if you ever see those signs, it's going to be a dashed line. Okay. Now, if you see the symbol where it has less than equal to or greater than equal to, that is a solid line. Okay. So yeah, we're graphing linear inequalities. Yeah, it's just like graphing linear equations. The only difference is you have either going to use a dashed line or a solid line and the shading. That's the only difference. So if you need a refresher how to graph a linear line, you can go ahead and check out my supplementary video on linear lines. It'll teach you from scratch how to graph a linear line. Okay. So speaking of linear lines, one way graphing a linear line, well, there's actually two ways. One way is finding the x and y-intercept, and the other way is using the rise of the run. But right now we're going to focus on just finding the x-intercept and y-intercept. One way, one of the two ways, one way Okay. So we're going to graph a linear line by finding the x and y-intercept. We're not going to graph it using the rise of run method, but you could if you want to. So you're probably thinking, what does that mean? X and y-intercept, how do you find that? So let's talk about that. So to find the x-intercept, now this applies for all graphs. It doesn't matter if it's linear or not. But to find the x-intercept um, for any graph, set y equals 0 and solve for x. Okay. And then let me put it up here. I'm running out of space, but to find the y-intercept, let me set x equals to 0 and solve for y. Okay, that's it. To find the y-intercept for any graph, set x equals to 0 and solve for y. And then to find the x-intercept for any graph, set y to 0 and solve for x. That's it. Okay, so go ahead and write that all down. If you need to pause the video, that's perfectly fine. to write the notes because now we are going to do some actual problems. So I'm going to clear. If you need to pause, go ahead and pause. Okay, let's start with question one. So in question one, we have a line, a linear line, and we have some kind of dash line, and we also have some shading, right? So there's there's a lot going on. There's a linear line, dash, and shading. So based on our notes, we said that if you have a dash line, your symbol must be either less than or greater than. So that's a big clue. You can eliminate letter A and letter D because it has an equal sign, and that means it would be a solid line, correct? Okay, then what I'm going to do is remember in our notes, we said in order to graph a linear line, we could find it by finding the x and y-intercept. So what is our x-intercept? Here's the x-axis right here. My x-intercept is right this point right here. That's x-intercept is 6, or you could write it as a coordinate 6, comma 0. And then do we have a y-intercept? Yes, we have it up here, and I don't know if you can see it, but it's y equals 5, or you could write it as a coordinate 0, comma 5. That's perfectly fine. So which of these inequalities gives you an x-intercept of 6 and a y-intercept of 5? So yeah, so I don't think you could put this in your calculator. I think you can only use a scientific calculator, but I could be wrong. So what I'm going to do is test each one. So let's test B. So on B, to find the x-intercept, the first thing I would do is forget about the inequalities, make it as an equal sign for right now. So what I mean is re rewrite B as 5x plus 6y equals to 30 for right now, right? We're just going to get rid of this. We're going to forget about the inequality and we're just going to set it as an equal. Okay. Now let's find the x-intercept. And if it gives you an x value 6, it might be the one, right? So how do you find the x-intercept for any graphs? Well, according to the notes, you set y to 0 and solve for x. So it's going to be 5x plus 6 times 0 equals to 30. So this cancels, and then you're left with 5x equals to 30. Divide this by 5, and then x equals 6. Hey, lo and behold, we do have an x-intercept of 6, or you can write it as a coordinate as 6, comma 0. So maybe this is the one. So what's the other thing we got to check is uh find the y-intercept. So let's find the y-intercept. So we're gonna set it up as an equation right now. And how do you find the y-intercept? You simply set x to 0 and solve for y. So this cancels, so you have 6y equals 30, and then divide this by 6. You get y equals 30 divided by 6 is 5. So it looks like we have a y-intercept of 0, comma 5. Okay, so we have an x-intercept of 6 and a y-intercept of 5. Now, is this our graph? Most likely. Now, if you really want to do the shading, this is how you know you do this is how you do the shading with inequalities. So for the shading, what you do is pick a point that the line this graph does not go through. So what I mean is you can't use any of these, like you see these dash line, you can't pick any of these points. So it looks like we can't use the point 5. The x, yeah, we can't use the 5. But we could use the coordinate 0, 0. So what I will always do is pick the origin because usually the graph doesn't go through the origin. See, this is the origin right here. So as you can see, this graph doesn't go through the origin. So we can use that point. And what we do with that point is put it back into the inequality. So do not put it in the equation, put it back to the original inequality. And what do I mean? So here I'll show you. So 0 is an x coordinate and this other 0 is a y coordinate. So what you're going to do is plug in that coordinate back in here. So it's going to be 5 times 0 plus 6 times 0 is less than 30. So what happens is 5 times 0 is 0, 6 times 0 is 0. So you're left with 0 is less than 30. Okay. Now you got to ask yourself, is this a true or false statement? Is 0 less than 30? So is 0 less than 30? So it could be a little bit confusing at first. So what you would, if it confuses you, put it on a number line, right? 30 is the larger number, so you put it on the right, and then 0 is the smaller number, so you put it on the left. And then ask yourself, is 0 less than 30? Yes, 0 is definitely less than 30. So what that means is we said we picked the point 0, 0, and because it's a true statement, you're going to shade on that side. Okay. As you can see, the shading is correct. So the shading is correct, the x-intercept is correct, and the y-intercept is correct. Thus, this must be the correct answer. E. Okay, so that was a lot to that was a lot to do. Okay, so let me recap what I did. First, I did some elimination. I was given a dash line. So I eliminated A and D because you have an equal sign, right? You have a straight horizontal line. That means a solid line, right? So I eliminate A and D. Then what I did was I got to make sure my x and y-intercept correct. So I found my x-intercept, which is 6. So this matches it. And then I found my y-intercept, which is 5. So this matches it. So that is looking good so far. Then what you got to do is make sure you have the correct shading. So do not do not always this you see the symbol less than that doesn't necessarily always mean you're going to shade on the left side, right? So what you do is you pick a point that the line does not go through. I prefer the origin because it's easy, 0, 0. And as you can see, it doesn't go through the origin. And then I put it back into this inequality, and it turns out to be true. So that means you shade on this side, which is correct. So that is the correct shading. So that is correct. Okay. So our answer is letter B. Okay, let's move on to question 2. Question 2 says solve the inequality, and the good news is we do not have to graph it. So, oh yeah, okay. So one more key important notes. Go ahead and write this in your notes. When you're dealing with inequalities, this is also very important. If you divide or multiply by a negative number, you must flip the sign. And so it doesn't, I mean, if you add or subtract by a negative number, you're fine. Don't have to flip the sign. But when you divide or multiply by negative, yes, you do. Okay, let's move on to question 2. So what I'm going to do is um, let's simplify. Let's FOIL out this negative 3. So this will be negative 3x positive 18. And then it's going to be less than equal to x minus 30. And then what I would do is let's get it's like solving equations. So the one, two steps. First, before I move things around, check if you can collect like terms. So look at the left side of the inequality. Can you combine negative 3x and 18? No, right? Why can't you combine them? Because this has a letter and 18 does not, right? Negative 3x is a variable, 18 is a constant. They don't mix. Now, what about the right side? Can you combine these? No, because this is a letter and this is a constant, and letters and constant don't mix. So then what you got to do is get the letters on one side and get the constant on one side. It really doesn't matter what you do first. So I think I'll get the letters on one side, and I think it's wise to move this x to the other side. So I'm going to move it to the left by subtracting negative 1x. Okay, so this cancels. Now we remember the sign does not change because we subtracted and we didn't multiply our negative or divide by negative. So, and then the right, you're left with negative 30. And then on the left, negative 3x and negative 1x is negative 4x plus 18. And then move, let's get all the constant on one side. So I think it's wise to move that 18 to the right by subtracting 18. So you have negative 4x is less than equal to. And what is negative 30 and negative 18? Negative 48. Okay. And then let's solve for x. So how do I get solve for x or get rid of this negative 4? So do not add 4x. That will not get rid of your x. That it would actually zero out your x. We just want to get rid of the negative 4. Since this is squished, this is multiplication. Do the opposite of multiplication, divide. So you're going to divide both sides by negative 4. This cancels, and then you're left with x. And then because I divided by a negative, I do got to flip the sign, so it's going to be greater than equal to. Negative 48 divided by negative 4 is positive 12. Okay, so I did flip it because I divided by a negative, and that is my answer. X is greater than equal to 12. So it's B. Okay, let's move on. Okay, here we have a word problem. Oh, favorite. I don't like word problems. I'm just kidding. I love word problems. Okay, let me clear. Okay, question 3 says Rita is renting a car from a road trip. The car rental company charges a flat fee of $50 plus $30 per day for the rental. Rita has a budget of 350 for the car rental. Right and inequality represent the number of days Rita can rent the car and determine the maximum number of days she can rent the car within her budget. Okay, so we are dealing with inequalities and we actually are dealing with linear equations, believe it or not. So if you, what do you remember from linear equation? One of them can be expressed as y equals mx plus b. Okay, but we're dealing with inequality, so it will not be an equal sign. It's either going to be greater than or less than or greater than equal to or less than equal to, right? So let's do this part here, mx plus b. Do we have those values? Do we have a slope? Meaning, do we have an uncontrolled value, right? Or and do we have a b, a fixed value, something you put up front, or a fixed value, right? So let's read the sentence again. Rita's renting a car for a road trip. The car rental charges a flat fee of $50 plus $30 per day for the rental. So yes, we do have both of them. My M or my uncontrolled cost is $30 per day. So my M is 30. And then my B is the y-intercept, which is a fixed cost, which is 50. Okay. Okay, so we can just kind of write it out. 30, maybe instead of X, our X could be days. So let's do 30D. plus, and then our B is the flat fee cost, $50. Then somehow we have to create an inequality. So it's specifically said right here, Rita has a budget of $350. So what kind of inequality should I use? Should I use greater than, less than, greater than equal to, or less than equal to? Well, you have a budget of 350, so you can't go, you can go exactly 350. You can't go over 350, but you can also go less than 350. So the correct symbol would be less than equal to 350. Okay. And then we want to know, determine the maximum number of days. So we got to solve for D. So I'm going to solve for these by first subtracting 50 from both sides. So you get 30D is less than equal to. What's 350 minus 50? 300. And then divide this by 30. So I get D is less than equal to 10 days. Okay, so we don't flip the sign because we didn't divide by negative, right? So what does the symbol mean? D is less than equal to 10 days. So you can go up to 10 days, right? You can go up to 10 days. You can't go 11 days. You can go less than 10 days. So that means you could do 9 days, 8 days, and below, right? So they're asking for the maximum. So you technically can go up to 10 days. So our maximum would have to be 10 days. Okay, so that would be letter A. So yeah, so this one we did with inequalities, and then we went back to linear stuff. And yeah. Okay, so that was that one. I'm going to stop here.